Hey guys, today we are painting my bedroom walls at my trailer project, which is interesting. We're going to learn two things. One, how to paint wood paneling so that it sticks, and how to use a spray machine to do interior painting. Just to get this clear, this is a glossy wood surface, all right? This is old wood paneling. So in theory, if you have the right primer, you can paint this. In past times, I've always recommended going odorless Zinsser, which is an oil-based product. Runs about 85 bucks a gallon. So this time around I went shopping, came by Sherwin-Williams, and they have a wood product here called Pro Block. Prep right. I mean, you gotta love these words. Not marketing geniuses, but it's hard to be confused, right? So we're gonna throw this in the sprayer, and we're gonna actually spray the walls down and put on a layer of, what do we call it? Transition primer, okay? That way we can go from wood to paint, and after this paint is cured, it's not gonna be able to scratch off with your fingernail. That's the benefit. Lots of primers don't bond well enough on a glossy surface to do that. That's why we chose this, specifically formulated. Technology is a wonderful thing. Really what we want to do is just prep for the sprayer right now. So we have to do a couple things. One, we have to vacuum. Okay, we can't have dust around because of the nature of a sprayer. Any dust that's around, the sprayer is just going to blow it up in the atmosphere. It's going to land on your walls. You're going to have to sand it. When you sand it, you'll expose little pieces of glossy. You're going to be running into all kinds of trouble, right? So preparation is part of the job of painting. It's actually usually about the same or more work than actually painting. In this case, just got to take off all the cover plates. And the reason for that is I don't want to have a scenario where I'm finished the entire job and I walk into a room and I got a cover plate that's not perfectly square, and I go to move it and I expose all the old wood paneling. You're back to square one. Remember, we're going to frame this out and put casing on. These lines have to be perfectly parallel. It's a lot easier at the end of the day to get rid of the old yellow plates and then put on brand new plates. Now here's the trick for you. We're down in Florida, which means as a homeowner, I'm not allowed to mess around with the switches and the plugs. So if that's the case and you're stuck with the old yellow ones, Shot of Kills original. This is an oil-based primer. And then give that 5 minutes, flick the light the other direction, shoot the bottom side. And then when you're done, pull out a little of this high performance enamel white spray paint. Okay? And make that switch brand new. Then when you put on your new white cover plate and your new white plugs, all of a sudden you got brand new electrical. And of course the next thing we want to do is we want to cover up this. I'm on a budget. I don't know if I'm going to keep it yet, but in the spirit of saving me a whole lot of time, just disconnect that, take off the knob, we'll take off the lens, and we'll have access to take off the blades. In order to get rid of these fan blades, you got two options. You can actually come on top and undo the 3 screws. That's real frustrating. This is 2 screws. They're just Phillips and they're machine thread. And you can just move these around to where it's convenient. If your fan blades look like this, you can take them off, wash them, and reinstall them just as easily. Don't try to wash them in place. That just makes a hell of a mess. All right, well, stay tuned. We're gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna try painting this bad boy. I'm too short. I need an actual ladder. There we go. Yeah, that's better. There we go. Okay, good to go. There we are. And then we'll just keep on taping the same direction that I was wrapping the plastic. That'll bond all that together. Close up a couple of gaps. Good to go. Well, it's ugly, but effective, huh? So now, let's get rid of everything out of the room. We'll finish taking off the rest of the plates, and we'll get the primer going. Woohoo! Here's our new product, and here's the old product. Now, we just finished doing a series on how to paint the outside of your house. And this is a Sherwin-Williams exterior paint. It's designed to be used on siding in certain climates, okay? So you gotta watch that video to find out if it's right for you. Yes, my pump is full of the other paint. Yes, this line is full of the other paint. Yes, they're both acrylic latex with different additives to have different features and benefits. I'm not concerned if a little bit of that paint mixes with my primer. It's gonna be like a 95-5 mix. So instead of going through the process of washing it all out and rinsing it all out, I'm just gonna switch over because I know that the foundation for most of this paint is exactly the same. It's kind of like getting a couple of carrots in your peas, you know? They're both vegetables and it's not gonna kill you. I guess unless you're allergic to carrots. All right, Now, we got power, we got it on. We're just gonna make sure that this is full of paint and flick this switch. There we go. Now we know it's full. I guess we were painting outside until we ran out of paint, so everything kind of got a little empty. Basically, we have two lines here. One pulls it in and one feeds it back, okay? So if you're switching over, you take this off, you put it in a pail, you wash it with water, and then you go put it in the pail. You leave it in the pail with the water when you put the new paint in, then you run the paint through until the paint's coming into the pail. It's a lot of time and energy, and then you waste material. So this is just more efficient. I'm a big fan. This is a half horsepower, not a 5/8. This is the X5, not the X7 you've seen in other videos. So it's great for homeowners, great for interior projects. I think it was only $300, maybe $400. It's not bad. What I'm gonna do right now is just check to see if my spray's coming out nice, okay? And then I'm gonna adjust the tip if I need to clean it. Yeah, here we're gonna clean the tip now, watch this. She's a little dried out. Now you see how I've got this finger line effect going on with that paint right here? We're gonna adjust our pressure, see if we can get rid of that. That's much more consistent. There we go. Well, I'm liking that. Now it's time to get to work. We're gonna start up here with our ceiling line. That is a plastic trim and it needs to be primed. And even though it's not officially wood, this is gonna bond to it just fine. See that? Primed. Okay, I'm also gonna do the ceiling because I can prime and get a ceiling finish all in the same coat. Right? This is a satin finish. And you just overlap a half lap. All right? Nice. Now later on you can come back in different lighting and everything else and double check. And if you've got any flashy spots or dull spots, you can just hit it again because with a sprayer you don't get roller lines. Here we go, spray shield next to my window. And then over here. And then over here. And across the bottom. Okay. Now, with the rest of this, start at the top, around the ceiling, and then work your way down, okay? Work your way around the room. Do the ceiling, do the wall, just do one big clock circle motion, and then we're good to go. And you know, we can take care of all these details with the nails and the trims and the carpentry after the fact. All we have to do is prime the wood that we're gonna install, or buy primed lumber. Oh, there. Pay close attention to these gaps, okay? If you're not happy with it, instead of going with blade this way, turn it upright and just give it a quick shot. Make sure they're full of paint, okay? You wanna keep about 10 to 12 inches off the wall and point this at the lead edge, because what it does is it overlaps. It paints 5 or 6 inches and then gets second coats 5 or 6 inches. That's how you prime. All right, well, let's just go through a couple quick things you saw while I was doing that. Basically, we tried our best not to paint the fixtures, right? All of the light switches and stuff. And then we're gonna come back with the oil-based primer and then the enamel paint to get those all touched up. So in this one, I painted the doors, I painted the handles, I painted the hinges, because we're changing all of the doorknobs and the hinges. These things are still on the market. This isn't even a regular hinge, it's just a 3-way hinge, okay? Check that out. This is standard in these houses, okay? These are not mortised into the door or the jamb. They're all surface mounted. So you've got to go find yourself a mobile home supplier, dealer, because they have different thicknesses of doors. They got different kinds of hinges. They have different vent cover sizes, okay? All of these things, you can't just pop down to the local hardware store. You got to go to a specific supplier. So as long as you're doing that, you should have a lot of success. It's easy to change out the hardware after the fact. Let's not get worried about it right now. It's easy to paint a door while it's hanging. Why move it? Now it's time for phase 2 in the prepping for our painting of the wall paneling in this bedroom. Step 1 was just simple, we sprayed, right? Nice and easy, no big deal. It's been sitting for about a week. Okay, so there's the scratch test for you. I got hot. And it's bonding really well. But what it is showing is that this being a glossy paint, it's showing us all of this embossed detail in the wood paneling that makes it look like real wood. It almost gives it a distressed look. It's really quite something. But it's also showing up all the joints. This is a joint, one panel to the next, and it's showing all the staple heads. Okay, there's like a crown staple holding all this together. I'm gonna recommend when it comes time for your paint, for your finish, you don't go with an eggshell. You gotta soften it up a little bit, all right? You don't wanna have anything that's an imperfection jumping off the wall. So consider going with a washable flat paint, all right? This will be key to getting a really good result. Because it's still a manufactured home, it's still wood paneling with lots of joints, okay? So you gotta do yourself a favor. And the less sheen that's in the paint, the less all of these imperfections are gonna show up and scream at you. So that'll be really good to know. Second thing we're gonna do here as part of our prep, we're gonna take some painter's caulking. This is just good old fashioned 25-year acrylic. It's just a few bucks a tube. And what we're doing with this is we're getting rid of all these aggressive shadows. So I'm not gonna dab every nail head. I'm gonna let 2 coats of paint solve that problem. But what I'm gonna look at is trims like this, okay? Gaps like this that have really aggressive shadows. And I wanna get rid of that, all right? And I wanna just be fairly liberal with the caulking, all right? Get that in there, fill up that gap really well without too much run over, all right? You see, we're not trying to hide the fact that this is paneling. We're trying to beautify it. We're trying to say, hey, this is a wood wall, right? Incorporate it and be proud of it, but we have to be subtle. We want to get rid of the deep crevices. We want to get rid of little imperfections that are reoccurring, that are obviously man-made, just by choosing the right paint and the right bit of prep. Now, I'm going to go around with my caulking. I'm not going to fill in the paneling grooves, okay? We're going to let the paint do that. The more texture we have on the wall, the better. It minimizes the effect of every other piece of texture. We just want to get rid of really deep, dark shadows because those things always look terrible in a paint job. I know it's a bit messy, but it washes off with soap and water, so don't worry about it. This is not a silicone product at all, okay? It's just an acrylic caulking. You get the idea. Now I'm going to spend a couple of hours doing this. We also got to address all of the holes that were made where they were hanging pictures. That's a frustration because that is not dirt. That's a hole. Take a little bit of your caulking and wipe that right into those holes. Every one of these little nail holes that they used to hang a picture. And I'm in trouble because in the hallway, it looked like they had probably 200 or 300 pictures in there that had been reorganized a few times. Might be easier to change the paneling. Instead of using the gun and the tube to squeeze it in the hole, just create a bit of pressure so it's leaking. Beautiful. When we're done, release the pressure by squeezing this piece right here. One other shadow I want to address is right here. Let me just pull this forward a little bit. There we go. Right up under here, okay? So there's 2 other places we could caulk. One is on the top, but no one's ever gonna see that. So don't worry about it. Remember, the rule of life is when you're prepping for a paint job, you only wanna fix up what people are gonna see. So if you're next to a stairwell, above the doors, some of the doors you've gotta do the caulking and get up there and do a nice perfect cut line. But in here, the only one you're gonna see is on the bottom. So this is one line that we wanna make sure we don't have a shadow. It makes this piece look much more integrated and intentional and not just something that's obviously covering a gap in the wood. That needs a nail. Good news, whenever I travel long distances, I always bring my air compressor with me, fully charged with my tire inflator on it. A, because if I ever hit a nail, I can pump it back up again. And B, because a compressor is one of the most important tools that you can own, especially when you're working on a job site and traveling around. You can always buy an air tool that'll match with the compressor for just about any situation that you're gonna face. Fortunately for me, I left in such a hurry because, well, we got an appointment at the border to go and get our work visa. And so I didn't take enough time to go through the tools. I wish I'd thrown my brad nailer in there. As it is, I'm gonna be just like everybody else, trying to do a project for the first time without a tool. And what brad nailer did Jeff buy? I bought the cheapest one that was sitting on the shelf. You got it, I got the rigid, and that's okay. I actually don't mind this tool at all. I use one for a lot of years. Big secret with rigid tools is when you buy it, take the information and register your purchase online. The lifetime warranty is only applicable to people that registered their tool when they bought it, okay? You can't just walk into the store and say, hey, I got a rigid tool, it's not working, fix it or give me a replacement. You gotta be registered or it doesn't count, all right? And they're gonna want the serial number of the tool and all that wonderful stuff. And it's such a hassle, I never do it. Yeah, I know, I'm that guy. Well, that's a sleek new design, eh? Team gauge. It's already got this thing together. The one thing I like about the rigid, it stops working when it runs out of nails. Wonder if that's the case for this new model. I hope so, because that's the only thing about the DeWalt tool that drives me nuts. It makes just a slightly different sound when it runs out of nails. But if you're like me, you've usually figured out when you walk away and then the trim falls off the wall. Oh, that's an interesting little package of nails. There it is. And if you don't own a compressor and you want to get a good recommendation, this is it. This is the DeWalt trim compressor. This is incredibly quiet, so it won't drive you nuts and it won't drive your neighbors nuts. And not bad, eh? That'll take about 3 minutes to power up. I'm just admiring this tool for a second here. This is a nice newer model. It's got a belt clip that adjusts for left or right hand use. Not bad. It's got 2 spare tips. And this is important because this is a magnesium housing, and so they'll dent just about anything they touch. All right, so that's nice to have those. And it has a depth setter on here. Yes, it does. And it also has a function to go from single to rapid fire. That doesn't mean you pull the trigger once and you get more than one nail. What it means is, I think you can just pull the trigger and every time you touch it, a nail comes out. So that's on, all right? There you go. And I have to adjust my depth setting just a little bit. Okay. Yeah, I don't like that function because I have a habit of hitting my leg. Yeah, learned that one the hard way. All right, you leave it on single, then you have to actually compress it and then shoot the nail, okay? Like I can't just go like this and touch. Nothing happens, all right? That's the safest way for homeowners to use it. Leave it on one shot, you have to depress the mechanism and then pull the trigger, okay? That's the safe way to use it. The other way is for production, but as homeowners, we're not worried about production as much as staying out of the hospital. I might as well put this trim on over here. I salvaged this. I'm gonna cover this nasty joint, and then hopefully we'll get some caulking on here, and then this will look a lot better. There we go. There's something to be said when you're tearing things apart. Try to keep them in as original condition as possible. You never know when you might need it again later. All right, now we got the caulking done. I do have to make sure I'm conscious of my order of things. I do have a wall that I'm doing a textured finish on. That's not finished yet. First of all, I got my measurement here. Okay, we got that one. Whenever you're doing new construction, sometimes there's always going to be a little bit of work that has to be done out of order. Minor changes, adjustments, you know what it is. Now that's just a primer I threw on there, a little bit of kills, because I don't want to have to prime it up against my new wall there. Try to find everywhere where there's wood, so we're not attaching it to just the paneling. Even though we're spray painting wood paneling, we still need to sand, because you never know. Yeah, like there's actually a hair there. Imagine that. Now, it's a rule. Whenever you paint, always sand between your coats. Between your primer, between your first and second. It's just the best process possible. There's always dirt and debris flying around. Now, I've already taken the time to sweep and vacuum the room, so it shouldn't be that bad. But here I am, you know, just follow the process and you'll never be disappointed. All right guys, well here we are. This is the X5. I just finished using this machine to paint the entire exterior of the house. This is my waste can, okay? So here's what happens. The second line, you throw in your waste can when you're gonna change a paint. All right, and here's my new paint that I'm gonna be using, and they were somewhat similar in design, so I'm not gonna worry about a little contamination. Because this is a pump and it's full of paint, this machine works this way. This one pulls, and this one sends. And if you put them in the same can, when you're applying your paints, everything's fine. But when you want to clean the pump out and switch your paint over, then what you do is you take this line, you throw it in here, and then we're gonna turn the paint on, turn the pump on, and we're gonna fill it up with brand new paint, okay? This will be interesting. Here we go. See? And what I'm waiting for here is this creamy color to show up in my, ooh, there it's dripping out just now. There we go. There we go. So now we'll put this one in here with the other one. Okay, good to go. Load up, close up my other gallon here. The only place that the paint hasn't been switched over is in my nozzle. So I'm gonna take this old dried out can and then I'm gonna fill this up with the old paint until I see the new color coming through. In order to do this, I'm gonna turn this all the way down to the slowest speed. So I'm not spraying too much paint out at once. We're waiting until we see that creamy color coming out. There we go. There's the creamy color coming now. Oh yeah, perfect. Mission accomplished. All right, and that is how you fill the pump and the line, and you've switched over from one paint to the next. So you can go from a primer to ceiling paint and then switch to wall paint. Follow those steps and you're ready to go. That's really all there is to know, except for, gonna turn our pressure back up a little bit, okay? When you're painting in small spaces like closets or cabinets, turn the pressure down so you don't get so much back pressure. And then really it's just aim and shoot. I'm gonna finish up this closet and then I'm gonna talk about the specifics of the process with you in just a minute. All right, here we go. The only thing you really gotta have is a system, because you're gonna wanna do 2 coats. So I like to go horizontal on my first coat and then vertical on my second coat, all right? I got a clog. I'm gonna take this nozzle, turn it around, shoot it out. And it should be right back in business. There it is. Well, that's the first coat for the closets done. All right, perfect. Now it's time for our caulking. Okay. We can set our watch to about 20 minutes and then that'll be all dry. So the goal is to start on the other side of the room, work our way back around, and we don't have to worry about if that's perfectly 20 minutes or not. Because we're spraying and not rolling, we're not gonna pull that caulking out even if it's still not perfectly dry. You're gonna see that in situations like this, I've got ceiling and I've got trims, right? This is the trim, grates. The trim and the grates, the door, they're all gonna be a different color. So my job here is to try to get as much of this coverage as possible without wrecking that finish. So what I want to do here is I want to spray with my line to just the bottom of the trim, intentional, so that there's a very minimal overspray. And I'm going to take my brush out and trim out all the trim in this room afterwards. Let's see if we can start here and we'll see if we can find ourselves a decent line to work with. Here we go, right there. Okay, done. All right, that's the secret. You start, find your line, and that's it, all right? You don't want to waste your paint by painting everything else in the room. And this little bit here I can touch up later with a brush. I'm also planning on changing out all the hinges, so don't worry about that. This is the kind of gun you want to do for production painting, right? This is not cut and roll. This is not fancy schmancy. This is get the damn place painted and then we'll worry about some trims afterwards. Because this is all about getting her done. And take your time. Try to keep everything straight at 90 to the wall. If you're spraying on an angle, then push it along the wall like this. So if I'm going to be in a tight corner, I'm going to paint like this. All right, and you'll always pull the trigger after you start moving and release when you're still moving, okay? But by that I mean this. You're moving, okay, that's how you paint, all right? That way you never start with a big bunch and you don't finish with a big bunch. You're always moving when your hand's on the trigger, all right? Do about a 50% overlay. Here we go. And if there's something that you're not happy with, let it dry, come back. If you try to fix something right away because you missed a spot, you're gonna end up with drips. Better put a wet coat over a dry coat than a wet coat on another wet coat. Always remember, check your paint regularly. If it gets too low, it starts sucking air, and then it gets air in the pump and air in the line, and then it'll just die out on you, okay? So then you gotta go, and while it's pumping air, you gotta run over there to turn it off real quick. What you wanna do is keep an eye on it, make sure your can's always more than half full, and then that'll never suck the air into the line and cause you that issue. Remember, when you get started, it takes about 1 quart just to fill the pump and the line before you even start painting. So it doesn't take long, but you have to get back on there to put some more in the gallon. So there's no such thing as spray painting a 1 gallon, because you have about 1/4 of a gallon sitting there when it stops working, then you got 1/4 of a gallon sitting in the line. That only gives you half a gallon to paint a room. So consider that. You know, this isn't the process if you're only doing 1 room. But if you're like me and you're renovating a whole house or you're doing a basement, time is money. That wall only has 1 coat. And that darker color will cover with 1 coat when I do my 2nd coat. That's why I did that 1st coat there, doing the rest of this room, and then I'll finish with the accent wall again. That way I can cut the lines and add the trims, make everything look perfect. All right, well, there's something oddly satisfying about watching paint dry. In this back wall, we're in a double wide trailer, so that's actually vinyl covered wallpaper. So it's gonna take about 2 hours to dry, even though we use the air sprayer. So instead of making you sit and watch the paint dry with me for the next 2 hours, look, call that a day. And I was a professional painter for a lot of years, and I learned some great skills, and I developed a system that passed it down to the DIYers so that you can use a brush and roll, okay? You can cut in like a skilled craftsman with this system. You don't need to use any masking tape to set up your room. If you want to learn how to paint like a pro, you should watch this video right here. Consider giving this video a like if you learned something new today.